Hello everybody, it's Kara from All the Book Garden, and today I'm here with a combination discussion and, I don't know, fun chatty video exploration of a Goodreads shelf. So basically, I am making this video because every year when the mid-year book freakout tag season rolls around, we have the same issue come up, and I have feelings about it every time, but I don't usually, I talk about it in the tag, but I don't make a huge deal out of it because I just don't feel like getting into it. But it's gotten to the point where I dread watching people's tags, which kind of sucks because I love this tag and I love watching them and answering the questions and everything. And I feel like this year the feelings about this particular question have been especially angry, so maybe that's part of it as well. But I am of course talking about the dreaded fictional crush question for this tag. Because for context, in case you guys don't follow this, but there is a mid-year book freakout tag that is a really fun way to answer questions about some books that you've read during the first half of the year. It was created by Ellie from Earl Grey Books and Chammy, and it's a booktube staple. Almost everybody does this tag every year. It's a great time, and there's one question that asks about your newest fictional crush, and it's happened in previous years, but I feel like this year it has been extra dismissive and condescending, because there are people who not just they don't want to answer the question or they skip it, because that would be fine, but they make it a point to be really nasty about the idea of answering this question or having a fictional crush. And like I said, this happens a lot, but this year I feel like it's been especially bad, so I was why not just do a whole video about it, because I am really tired of the book Snobbery. So I'm gonna have a little discussion part at the beginning, and then I'm gonna go through my Goodreads shelf that is book boyfriends, because I thought that might be kind of fun. So a few questions before I get into this discussion. This is not aimed at people who just don't answer the question, who skip it, or they're oh, I don't do this, I don't get fictional crushes, so I'm not gonna answer this one. That's totally fine. That is not what this video is about. This video is about the people who make it a personality trait to hate this question, and who strongly, I don't know if it's even imply, it's almost said outright that if you answer this question, there's something wrong with you, or you're stupid, or you're immature. That's kind of what this video is about, not just people who don't answer this question or who don't have an answer for it, because I get that happens. Also, just to kind of describe again why I'm doing this video, I don't think this is the biggest issue booktube faces or anything. I just feel this is kind of indicative of the snobbery problem that booktube or book blogging can have, as with other communities. And also this wasn't an issue until people made it an issue, you know what I mean? People could just answer or not answer this question as they saw fit, but it wasn't until I don't think I've ever seen or heard of somebody getting mad because somebody just chose not to answer it, you know? The people who really made this an issue are the ones who are personally offended that this question even exists and that some people do answer it, you know what I mean? So from my perspective, I don't feel like this would have been an issue if it hadn't already been made one, if that makes sense. So anyway, enough disclaimers, let's just get into it. I have a few reasons I just want to talk about real quick about why the anger and the personal disgust and distaste for this question and for people who answer this question, why that is not a great look. Or just why I don't know, people should maybe consider what they're saying before they say it. So the first thing I want to talk about is one of the things that people get real mad about is that they feel this is not a normal way to engage with storytelling. To have a character that you identify as oh, a fictional crush, or they're my book boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever. I would love to date them if I were a fictional character. However people talk about it, there's one of the feelings against that is that people think it is abnormal or strange, and that it's not. There are so many ways of engaging personally with stories. When people talk about favorite characters, or people talk about a character they want to be friends with, sometimes people even talk about, I would love to be this character. People will say I aspire to be this person when I grow up. That kind of thing. Of course it is possible to enjoy books and to not kind of view yourself as part of them, or almost imagine what you would be like if you were in that story. Of course it's possible to enjoy books and not do that, but for a lot of people there is sometimes this personal component to it. The same people who are disgusted by the existence of the book crush question will talk about a favorite character, and that won't feel dissonant to them, because that is a normal way to engage with characters, to think about how we would respond to a character, us as the reader would respond if a character were real. That is a thing a lot of people do in media. Like, that's normal. I hate to break it to you. Like, one example is, like, for romance books, I know that some people, when they read a romance book, they don't have to find the love interest personally attractive to them at all. Like, it's more about if the characters are attracted and if you build that relationship believably. Then there's some people who, when they read a romance book, they have to, at least in some way, be able to imagine being attracted to that person. You know, not necessarily like, I would date this person, but there have to be like some similarities between what the reader finds desirable in a partner and what the fictional character does. And then there's some people who are more in the middle. Like, that's kind of where I fall, is that like sometimes I can be like, I can love a romantic relationship in a romance or in other genres, and it's like separate from me. And then there's sometimes where it's like, maybe a book is really well written, but there's one particular thing about the hero or like the main, or like the love interest, the main character, that is a specific turnoff for me, and it can be hard to overlook that. Again, we all bring these subjective things to stories, so that's normal. Then my second thing I want to talk about is another reason people get very mad about this is like they feel, it's almost like they feel attacked because they don't have an answer, which, as I've said, I don't think I've ever seen anyone like judge somebody for not interacting with stories this way, you know, for not getting fictional crushes, because that is also normal. And I guess my point for this one could be summed up as like, yeah, same here. Like, whether or not you interact with fictional characters in a way that allows for the possibility of a book crush, I know that was a very convoluted way to say that, but like, whether or not you interact in a way that can make that a possibility, like, either way is normal, and either way is like kind of an instinctive way of engaging with the story. Like, for people who say like, oh, like, well, I can't really help it, I just don't get crushes on fictional characters, that is 100% true and valid and fine. And likewise with people who do, like, that is just a way that some of us do engage with stories, not like deliberately, but that's just part of what can happen. And like, not with every book we read, obviously, not with every character we read, but there are some characters that is a factor, and like how we read that character and respond to that character. And both of those things are like not our fault, you know? Like, whether you do or don't get fictional crushes, both of those are valid, and both of those are things that you can't really, like, I'm sure you could try to turn it off or turn it on if you wanted to, but like, they're just kind of instinctual ways of interacting with stories. And then finally, the last thing I want to talk about is one of the most common things said by people who, again, you know, personally despise this question and the people who answer it, it seems like, is a lot of times people will compare this to teenage girls. Like, they'll say like, I'm not a teenage girl, so I don't have a fictional crush, that kind of thing. And this is like, I think, wrong for a couple of reasons. Before I get into that, I do want to like acknowledge that just because something is enjoyed by teenage girls, that doesn't mean it is immune to criticism. Like, I feel like the Twilight Renaissance is a good example of that. Like, there can be problems with a thing that are worth talking about, and it shouldn't feel like you can't do that just because something is enjoyed by teenage girls. But overall, as a society, I feel like we are much more likely to vilify something that is talked about by teenage girls or that is enjoyed by them. So kind of the twofold issue that I have with this complaint about like, oh, this is a question that only teenage girls would answer, is number one, it is patently untrue. Like, I don't know if y'all have looked around at people who like do answer this question or who refer in videos to like, oh, this is my book boyfriend, I love this character, whatever. But it is not only teenage girls. So to make that generalization, like, it is incorrect. And then I think the bigger issue with that is that even if this were a question that was geared towards teenage girls, you know, some of whom are on BookTube, like, even if it weren't exaggerating to say that most people who answer this are teenage girls, maybe you should think about why your first instinct to insult something is to compare it to something enjoyed by young women. Like, it's really hard for me to hear that criticism and not think like, why was this your go-to? Like, why is your first idea about this thing is stupid and I think I'm better than it to be like, this is something that is enjoyed by young women? You know what I mean? So anyway, that's my little explanation, my presentation on why it is not ridiculous or stupid or immature or worthy of disgust and scorn if you choose to answer the fictional crush question, or if you have fictional crushes. And like I said at the beginning, I know not everybody does, and so this is not an attack on people who just skip that question, who say, I don't do that, or like whatever. This is not like an attack or anything. This is more geared towards the people who, as I said, make it an entire like personality trait to communicate this disgust and condescension for people who do answer it, or who might have these feelings about some characters, and who will like give you a whole like mini presentation every time they do this tag on why this is the dumbest question to ever exist in the history of the world, and why we should all judge people who don't think so. So here's my little presentation against that. Anyway, I hope some of this was clear, and like obviously I have strong feelings about it because nobody likes being told or having it implied that they're stupid. And I also like snobbery is one of my, I guess, pet peeves, and that includes on BookTube, so I just had a lot of feelings about it. And as I said, I feel like this year it was, I don't know, people were especially angry about it, so I guess I got angry in response, but here's my little discussion. Now I'm going to go into my Goodreads shelf of book boyfriends. I've been thinking about maybe some videos that would be fun to just kind of highlight some of my different Goodreads shelves, and this is one of the ones I thought of, and so this sounded like a perfect opportunity to do that. So a couple explanations before I just get into talking about them. And also you'll see too that there's not actually that many on this list for the number of books I read. I am pretty particular about what gets the book boyfriend label. But before I get into it, you'll notice that some of these are adult books, some of them are young adult books. The reason that there are young adult books, even though I am no longer a young adult myself, is because some of them I first read when I was in that target age, and sometimes I'll add a book to that shelf because I'm thinking of like, if I were a teenager, this is the kind of teenager I would be interested in, you know what I mean? So just wanted to clarify there's nothing creepy going on here. And then my other disclaimer is there are at least a couple characters that are like missing from this shelf. Like for example, I've talked about before how my formative book crushes were Artemis from the Artemis Fowl series and Edmund Pevensey from the Chronicles of Narnia. And I just don't have these on here because, again, I said those are formative book crushes. I feel like that would be in a separate category from some of these other characters. So I hope that makes sense. Maybe it's a little inconsistent, but it makes sense in my head. Okay, so I apparently have 22 books on the book boyfriend shelf, and I'm just gonna go through, talk about these, talk about if I still think they belong on this list, and yeah, I just thought this would be fun. So the first one I have here is North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. This is of course because of John Thornton, and yes, I just added this one, so I still believe he is a worthy book boyfriend for me. I just really love how, like, his character development and how like loving and devoted he is, and that he is willing to change and become a better person. He's also very romantic, and I love that. So yes, still sign off on that one. I also have Still Star-Crossed by Melinda Taub. This is one of the examples of like, I have an OTP, like I ship them really hard, but also, again, I was a teenager, I think, when I first read this book, so I was at their age. But also, like, simultaneously, I also thought of this. I thought of Benvolio as like, yes, I would also want to date you. Yes, so I still love him as a character. I still love them as a couple. Then a recent ad is The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary. This is for Leon, the male lead, and he has the distinction of being the only contemporary book on this list. Apparently I just don't get fictional crushes on contemporary heroes usually, but Leon is just like the sweetest, kindest person. I adore him. I love how understanding he is, and how like I don't know, he's very like gentle. He's just like such a sweet, like genuinely good person. He's funny, he's smart, like he's really, really compassionate. I just love him. So still, yes, still sign off. The next we have one of those I was talking about where this is a young adult book that I added because if I had been a young adult, I would have like wanted to date this person. So that is Blanca y Roja by Anna Marie McLemore, and this is for Yearling. He like surprised me the most, I think, out of any of the four main characters, just because I wasn't sure if I would like him, but I obviously did. He also is very like quiet. He has this very quiet strength. I love him and Roja together. This is one of those cases where, again, I love the two characters separately and I love them together as a couple, but then I also am like, if I were a teenager, I would 100% be in love with Yearling. This is one that I think I'm actually going to change to like an OTP shelf rather than book boyfriend, because sometimes there's overlap, but sometimes it's hard to decide which of these it belongs to, you know? So I won't take it off now, but I will later. That is Sherwood by Megan Spooner. This is like, I don't know. This is one where definitely an OTP and possibly a fictional crush. I don't know. I love them together and I love him as a character, but I don't know if I would actually commit to putting this character on the book boyfriend shelf. But I have a whole review on this book. I love it. A lot of people hate it, but I just adore it. Then a character, like I think this is the only character from last year that made it onto the book boyfriend shelf, or 2 years ago, and that is The Other Bennett Sister by Janice Hadlow. I love this leading man so much. I love like his and Mary's interactions. Like I love the way that he is really into art and poetry, and he's also a very smart and practical person. Like I love them together, but this is another case where it's like, I love you guys as a couple, but also I would date the male lead. But yeah, highly recommend that book. I love it. I love the romance. Pride and Prejudice, obvious reasons. I'm a basic bitch and I love Mr. Darcy. I cannot deny it. Oh, okay. Next is like possibly the weirdest one on this list. I talked about this in a previous mid-year book freakout tag. That is A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, because I love Sydney Carton with my heart and soul. Yeah, it's a little hard for me to explain why, unlike some of these other ones. It's like, his character development I think really gets to me. So this is an example of how it's not like an either or situation. Like I either personally really enjoy this character, you know, and would put them on a book boyfriend shelf or a favorite character shelf or whatever, or I love them in a way that like looking at the construction of the character and the book, sometimes there's overlap, because one of the things that I love about Sydney is like his character development, and he just, I just love him so much. Anyway, I can't explain that one. It's weird, I know. Then The Magnolia Sword, A Ballad of Mulan by Sherry Thomas. This might be another one where like I love them as a couple, but he's right on the edge of like, this is another young adult one that I added because, you know, the whole disclaimer I explained at the beginning. Obviously I would not date them now because I am an adult. Just to like repeatedly clarify that. But this is another character where like it might be kind of right on the fence of like, I know that I love them as a couple, but would they also qualify as like a character that I would have a crush on? You know what I mean? But regardless, I do love this book. I have a review for this one too. I love the main character and the love interest like separately and together, and I just love the way they work together. I also really love the way that he is one of those characters who is like so proud of his badass girlfriend and like not at all threatened by it. I love that. Oh, this is an example of one where technically I think this character would belong on a favorite love interest shelf rather than book boyfriend shelf, because I don't know, I'm not sure I would actually like want to be involved with this person for various reasons, but this is also the book that has the distinction of being on my worst love interest shelf and book boyfriend shelf. Because I'm talking about two different characters, and that is So Silver Bright by Lisa Manchev. This is the third and final book in the Theater Illuminata series, which I had wildly mixed feelings about, but I did overall enjoy it and I'm glad I read it. This is like one of the quintessential examples of a love triangle that did not go the way I think it should have. I hated the endgame love interest so much. I thought the other one though was very interesting and I really liked him. Okay, then I have Defy the Stars by Claudia Gray. This is, I think, another one that like would be on an OTP shelf, but I'm not sure if that would also be the book boyfriend shelf. See, this is good. I'm kind of reevaluating the way that I choose these. Then A Sky Painted Gold by Laura Wood. This is one where, like, again, OTP and also favorite fictional love interest, like / book boyfriend, if I were his age, because I did not actually think I was gonna like him at first. This has happened with both of the Laura Wood books that I have really enjoyed, A Sky Painted Gold and A Single Thread of Moonlight. I like, we meet the male love interest and I'm like, I don't think I like you. And then by the end of the book, I loved him. So yeah, Sky Painted Gold, I think should stay on this list. I really, really liked him. Empire of Sand by Tasha Suri. I love Amun so much. I love Meher too, and I really like them together, but Amun is just like so sweet and like brave and strong, and he's one of those characters where like he's very like, he's like mushy inside, you know? It's like you wouldn't know immediately that he is like so gentle and romantic, but he is, and I love him. Quicksilver by R.J. Anderson. Yeah, I think I would stand by this one. I remember really liking the love interest. It's been a while since I read this one, but I remember really, really liking him and like him and the main character together. This is a book I really enjoy, but I can't really talk about because like everything you could say about it just about is spoilers, but I really enjoyed it. It's like the companion book in a duology. Then Graceling by Kristen Cashore. I'm going to be rereading these soon because I'm part of a read-along, and I'll be interested to see if I would still call Poe a book boyfriend. I remember really liking him, but it's been a while. Then Crimson Bound by Rosamund Hodge. Once again, this is one of those situations where, actually, like, this is one of the books that, like, is on my favorite main characters shelf, my OTP shelf, and my book boyfriend shelf. So pretty much just loved everything about these two characters, separately and together, and I would stand by this one. Yeah, I think this is true. Cotillion by Georgette Heyer. I don't even have to think about it. Yes, still a book boyfriend. I love this book. This is another one that I don't know for sure. Like, I'd have to reread it to see, because I read it so long ago. But that is Vengeance Road by Erin Bowman. I remember really liking Jesse, like the male lead, but I don't remember if it's enough to put him on the book boyfriend shelf. Obviously at the time I thought he was, so that is actually a book I'd be interested in rereading at some point. Then House of Sand and Secrets by Kat Hellison. This is the second book in a very like loosely connected series or world called the Hobverse, apparently. And this is one where this might be a case where I had strong preferences about which love interest I thought like was my favorite, or that I thought the main character should be with. And maybe this is something where like I didn't have a shelf for that, so I put him on book boyfriend. I don't know, maybe I should reread this one too. I do remember really liking him as a character, but the book boyfriend like tier, that's like a high bar to meet, you know? Grave Mercy by Robin Lefevers. I think I would stand by this one. This is another one it's been a long time since I read, but I think I would. This is a really good series, by the way. I still need to read the last book in the spin-off duology. I've been meaning to read it for an embarrassingly long time. Then Sing Sweet Nightingale by Erica Cameron. We're almost at the end of the list, you guys. This is another one I read a long time ago, but I know for a fact I stand by this. Hudson would have been a great book boyfriend. Like, I love him so much. Like, I've talked about this book before. Like, there's a lot of things I love about it, but one of the things that I really, really like about it is the way there's like a particular scene where like Hudson, because he's one of those characters who like he looks kind of intimidating and scary, but he's like really not. But he's just like such a kind person, and he thinks of himself as not being that way, but he is. And there's this one scene that is one of my favorite scenes in the book where the main character, I think Mariella is her name, she makes a mistake that like puts her life in danger, and Hudson obviously really cares about her, and so he gets really upset and he kind of like yells, like I forget what he says, but it's like something like, you know, you should have like listened to me, like I don't want anything to happen to you. But then after that happens, he actually like apologizes to her for getting angry, especially because of Mariella's past in this book. And so he like apologizes to her, and he says that like, you know, I said that because I care about you and I was scared. He's like, but that doesn't mean I get to yell at you when I'm upset, and I'm really sorry, you know, please forgive me for that. And just the way that was done, I think was fantastic. We love a man who apologizes. I stand by it. Hudson is great. And then the last one on this list is one that I am pretty sure I'll be taking off the book boyfriend shelf and just leaving on the OTP shelf, because in hindsight, this has been years and years since I read this one, but in hindsight, I don't think I would actually, if I were this character's age, I don't think I would want to date them. I think they'd be very frustrating, but I love them with their love interest, and that is Rebel Belle by Rachel Hawkins. I treat this book as a standalone because I read the sequel and it was very disappointing, but I really love this book. I think it's a lot of fun. I think the character work is really great, and I do really love the romance, but I don't think the romance would actually work for me in real life. Like, I think he would really get on my nerves, actually, if we like knew each other in real life. So, okay, those were 22 books, and like considering on Goodreads I have read more than 1,400 books, I think it's, let me look. Actually, just at 1,400. That's cool. I've read more books than that, but on Goodreads I have recorded that I have read 1,400 books. So only to have 22 books that I put on the book boyfriend shelf, it's pretty selective. And like I said, I think some of those I'll even be moving off that shelf because I think I can better articulate what I think of them as characters. But anyway, so I hope that was fun and interesting. I thought that would be a fun thing to tack on to this discussion video. I'm sure like the discussion part of this video seems like I'm making a big deal out of nothing, which, as I said, I am not saying this is the most important issue facing the booktube community or anything. It's just something I've been thinking a lot about, and I just have no patience for snobs, really. Please comment down below and, I don't know, let me know if you also get book crushes. I know not everyone does, and I'm not judging people who don't. I hope I made that clear repeatedly. But yeah, let me know if you also have read and enjoy any of the books I talked about at the end. If you do get book crushes, let me know a recent one for you. And if you don't, just let me know like a book couple that you like. If you don't really get into book couples, just let me know a book that you enjoyed recently. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye!